Hey everyone, so it's Tuesday and that means it's time for a roundup. BioWare have talked about the future of Anthem. Activision have said that they're not done with remasters just yet. The future looks rather bleak and a bit strange for System Shock 3. Microsoft say they're trying something new with the Series X launch, plus a whole bunch more. Now, if you're new here then hello, we are an indie game studio. We also do 6 game industry news and analysis videos per week. So if you want more of that, hit that sub button. And if you'd like to help us out with the algorithm, that like button really helps too. And with that said, let's get going. So first up for today, a rather massive update for Anthem that comes directly from Casey Hudson, who is the general manager of BioWare. Of course, you will have maybe recognized Chad Robinson, who, or was it Robinson? Anyway, Chad, you'll remember him as the live service guy from Anthem, but he's no longer at the company, having actually left for Wizards of the Coast's new studio in Austin. And I've got to be real with you here. Anthem, I mean, it's in a pretty darn bad state, but what they say in this post is fundamentally right. Not that it's going to make customers feel better. If what Casey lays out actually does come true, and it's included for the base price of Anthem, then yes, a comeback is possible, but there's a lot of ifs there. So, the first paragraph is mostly fluff. You know, all that talk of, we're excited to bring a new world and bring you new experiences, you know, all that kind of stuff. But what matters is how he ends it. At the same time, there's so much more that we and you would have wanted from it. Yes, that pretty much is admitting reality. And I know that sounds a bit snarky of me to say, but it is kind of rare enough to hear that sort of thing from a AAA. Now, Casey then goes on to talk about how they've improved some parts of the game over the last year, like performance and stuff like that, but how they've heard feedback about needing more satisfying loot, better long-term progression for the game, and a more fulfilling endgame. I mean, yeah, it's pretty dire. Now here's what actually matters. He said that they are working on a longer-term redesign that focuses on core gameplay, providing people with clear goals, challenges, and rewards. And yeah, Casey says that they basically want to do a lot more of what they ideally would have done earlier, which is to test and iterate, focusing on gameplay. Now that brings up something interesting, right? Because Anthem is notorious in this regard. Like, it had basically no clear gameplay vision for years, and then it was locked into a slick, presentable form, the one that we saw at E3. And then their schedule was actually so tight, based on all that we know, that they basically didn't have time to iterate on really what the game was. They just had to make it. And we've since heard via an LA Times article that EA have since been inspired by Respawn Entertainment's rapid gameplay prototyping approach, and that they want to roll that out across more of their studios, which, I mean, does seem like common sense. How they weren't doing that is insanity, but it seems to be that's what's happening here. And I think what's almost more interesting here is the scope of what they want to do, because Casey says that it's beyond an update or an expansion. It's a substantial reinvention. So that basically means it sounds like they're going for Anthem 2.0 or Anthem Next, something like that. And this is something that's of course in line with the reporting that we did in Q4 of last year. Now they have said they're going to continue to provide like minimal support for base Anthem, but that they're dropping the seasonal model, which pretty much just means, I mean, why bother? They're going to keep up store updates, which I mean is interesting because being charitable, you could take that as them sort of insinuating that spending on Anthem now makes sense, which would maybe suggest that Anthem 2 or whatever it is would be a free update or a big continuation, but it's also just possible that it's them trying to, you know, slurp up the last drops of money out of Anthem. You know, which one is that? I mean, take your pick. Overall though, what they want to do is exactly what that game needs, but it's the execution that matters, right? This should be free to all people who own Anthem. Here's the deal, right? Those people were sold the game based on a content roadmap that did not materialize, that didn't exist. That essentially means that the only morally upstanding way to continue this IP is to forego making the big bucks by selling Anthem 2 for $60 or as a paid update. They need to take a page out of No Man's Sky's playbook here and just diligently work on free updates to the game. And I mean, it would be easy to ambulance chase here and to say, oh, they're abandoning the current game, even though, I mean, yeah, like that is what they're doing. But I think doing that too much would miss the broader picture here. Look, we can all, I think, agree that there's no point in doing incremental small updates to Anthem. It is fundamentally botched. It is broken at the core. It's a waste of time doing that. The best that they can do is to eat that defeat, to pretty much remake the game, and then to give it to all existing customers for free and earn their way back into people's favor. That's the only way they can do it and actually have things work. Now, for me, the final takeaway here is the corporate side of things. Anthem launched in such a state because, well, once its vision was locked into. They just went extremely tight in deadlines, such that the team could not iterate on the actual core game. And yeah, it seems like Respawn's continued success has given EA just a bit of a kick up the arse and shown them how bloody stupid they were being. I mean, hey, just because Patrick Soderlund claps his hands at the flashy Iron Man with cool graphics doesn't actually mean it's going to be a good video game, and we're sort of seeing that. Now, all that said, the Austin studio seemed to have struggled with staff recently. I mean, if you join BioWare and you love crafting stories, but then you got stuck in Anthem, not good. So I can see, like, say, the Wizards of the Coast RPG studio in Austin, Texas being far more appealing, and Jason Schreier did recently confirm that they are having issues retaining staff over the last period of time. So there you go. That is the Anthem update. I think they are making the right move in terms of development, but the only way that it can be right by the customer is for that to be a free update and not anything that they're directly monetizing through a sale price. At the end of the day, if you purchased that for $60, you got screwed over. You didn't actually get what they promised. So much like with the No Man's Sky situation, just working hard and giving it to people for free, it's the only way. And if they do anything else, I think it will massively backfire. And even tying it into yesterday's video, which, by the way, I do think you should watch on the whole entitled gamer thing. In this case, you know what? I think if you purchase that game at full price, you know, what are you going to feel entitled to? You're going to feel entitled to the promise that they sold you. And in this case, yeah, I think that does mean that any Anthem 2 is pretty much in lieu of the content roadmap that people didn't get, and therefore it must be free. Okay, next up we got something a little bit strange. So, reports have it that the entire development team for System Shock 3 have been let go. Not that it's cancelled, that the team are just gone. Now, this suggestion comes after several senior developers announced via their social media that they have departed Other Side Entertainment. Now, the long-awaited sequel's writer slash director, lead programmer, design director, they're all among those who have left the company in the last 5 months. Now, Other Side Entertainment, well, they've been on the search for a publisher for System Shock 3, and this is ever since Starbreeze sold the rights last February. Now, according to creative director Warren Spector, talks had been going quite well in the aftermath of the sale, and an agreement appeared to be imminent. So, in May 2019, it was then stated that Other Side had enough money to fund itself for, quote, quite a while, with self-publishing for System Shock 3 actually being a realistic option. But obviously, things haven't really went that well, have they? So there's been no word on a deal since, and an ex-community manager confirmed in December that Other Side had seen a series of layoffs. She also confirmed the legitimacy of a post on RPGcodex.com, where an anonymous developer claimed that, quote, the team are no longer employed there. Now, the belief here is that the team were, quote, critically behind in terms of content creation for the game. Now, the anonymous forum dev points to Starbreeze's well-documented financial difficulties that we have covered on this channel quite a bit as being a turning point, stating that basically had Starbreeze have not sold the rights, they would have been able to have delivered a fresh experience, but that high expectations allegedly drove a series of expensive experiments with the game. And according to the poster, they had to be creative and clever and weird, and they were on their way to making something unique and possibly fun, but probably not what the audience was hungry for. And seemingly with that, we don't know what's going on, but the team are no longer there. Now, we do know that the System Shock 1 remake is going to be okay. And this is a kind of interesting situation because in a case like, say, EA, you know, or with BioWare, with Anthem, right? You know, Anthem was kind of going nowhere with a bunch of expensive experiments, but at the end of the day, there's like a too big to fail situation. The bosses come in and say, hey, listen, you absolutely have to get this done by this date, just go and do it, which is what sort of happened there and what meant that they didn't have that iteration time. Whereas here, I think when you're dealing with lower budgets and more of a chance of absolute complete failure of the company, yeah, I suppose pulling the plug and massively cutting costs is the sort of thing that has to happen. Certainly a bizarre situation and a little bit sad because it's System Shock. It would have been very nice for 3 to have actually existed. Right now, it seems like that is tenuous at best, but at least we will probably get the remake. The next up, a round of news that honestly I thought was a little bit odd. So Phil Spencer has stated that the Xbox platform will continue to be, quote, bold and different with upcoming Series X reveals. Now, this was referenced the decision to announce it at the Game Awards, and apparently this was bold and different. not that I noticed, and that came from the idea to do that came from the suggestion of their marketing team. And it was really weird seeing this do the rounds. I mean, the glitz just makes me tired and not care, but apparently they hope to continue this different approach. But to be honest, a part of me wonders here if it's really that they just don't have that much more than Halo to show off, and they don't want to blow their load, to be honest with you. I suppose we're going to have to wait and see here. I mean, cynical as you or I can be, yeah, I mean, you've probably picked up on me thinking that Microsoft broadly are onto a winning strategy, considering how they seem to know they won't be able to compete with Sony on exclusives, so they're trying to compete by doing other innovative things, which generally seem to have involved getting customers more games for a lower price, which, at least for customers, seems to be a good thing. Anyway, more in this one as it develops. It's quite strange because both the Series X and the PS5 have had a lot of rumors that they've kind of still got things up their sleeve to show us, and I think that means that their full unveilings are going to be rather interesting. Alright, next up, let's talk about Activision Remasters. So, in their fourth quarter earnings call, they teased even more remasters happening. Now, I get how this could seem like a cash grab, but I mean, hey, let's be real. Like, the Spyro one was pretty much perfect, so there's potential there. Now, CFO Dennis Durkin told investors that Activision will dip into their collection of beloved IP to bring several remastered and reimagined titles to players in 2020. Now, the Crash Insane trilogy, Spyro Reignited trilogy, and Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled all performed extremely strongly for Activision, and I mean, yeah, obviously the company seems to see no reason to stop while the sales keep on coming in. I mean, the Crash trilogy in particular sold over 10 million copies. That is a lot of copies of a game. And then also, during the call, Activision mentioned that they're currently working on mobile games for all of the company's most important franchises, which does sort of tie into this, especially because we already appear to have gotten a bit of a look at a Crash Bandicoot-themed runner from the studio behind Candy Crush. So there we go. That's Crash sent into the mines. So yeah, who knows what mobile-focused Activision stuff that they'll do. I mean, COD Mobile obviously was very good for them. Now, it's hard to tell what will actually happen here. Like, maybe would they remaster another COD, like Modern Warfare, like not that one, like the Modern Warfare remaster did well, so Modern Warfare 2 could be a remaster. Blops, or the original one, could be, was actually larger than it, so that could be a remaster. On the PS2, I mean, the Spyros for PS2 weren't that great. There's Bond content, but the Bond content might be pretty darn hard to license, so I kind of doubt that, though I could see a Tony Hawk Pro Skater 4 remaster do very well, or something more with that IP. And then as for reimaginings, it's kind of hard to tell. I mean, I doubt we're going to see a new Spyro game in the vein of the original ones, even though it would probably do decently and probably wouldn't cost that much to develop. But yeah, right, if you think about that historic IP that's floating around there, what would you like to see in terms of reimaginings and new stuff? I'd actually be pretty keen to hear what you think. And then next up, a bit more on Platinum's rather bizarre Wonderful 101 Kickstarter that, I mean, yeah, it's been a runaway success. It smashed its first few stretch goals in only a few hours. They seemingly don't want that to end, though, so new stretch goals have been revealed, and they're ones that actually involve new content. Now, donations have already topped the lofty goal of 1.5 million, and that means the players will now be also receiving additional brand new 2D side-scrolling adventure that stars Luca, who is an important character from the main Wonderful 101 game. But what's odd is that a second installment of that spin-off is also the reward for meeting the $2 million stretch goal, while 1.75 million will give players a remix soundtrack that features a secret special guest. And it's all strange because with the game set to release in April, you really do have to wonder about the development state of all of this additional content, like what's actually going on there. Is it essentially stuff that's finished like the main game? Will the donations actually fund its development? It's kind of hard to tell. I mean, it's been such a weird campaign. The port being mostly finished to the point where they can't even put Kickstarters in the credits. I mean, that does make the whole thing seem far more like a marketing exercise and a fan onboarding exercise than an actual funding drive. So yes, a little bit strange. Anyway, moving on, there's one other thing I want to cover here. So according to Animal Crossing New Horizons ESRB rating, the upcoming Switch title is going to have in-app purchases. Now, this does come along with Nintendo's President's recent statement to investors a while back that Nintendo are committed to supporting their first-party titles with post-launch content. Now, that's DLC, and I think that's a good thing for players. But in the case of Animal Crossing New Horizons, it's unclear, right, whether that's going to be in the form of like microtransactions for maybe resources or things like that, or larger DLC packs in the same vein as like, Zelda or Smash Bros. Or Pokemon, something like that. And the reason why I bring that up is because Nintendo have been running microtransactions on mobile for quite a while now, with titles like Mario Kart Tour and Fire Emblem Heroes bringing in a lot of money. And then also Animal Crossing Pocket Camp, which has been a very successful money spinner for Nintendo. So it's not completely unheard of that, it's not completely like beyond imagining that they might bring in some of what was successful for mobile. Now, I'll definitely say if the mainline games to start, to gobble up free-to-play mobile stuff, it would be very depressing indeed. I actually would be a little bit surprised, but it's definitely something to watch out for. It's just, I look at how much money Nintendo make from the mobile stuff that they're doing, and I just kind of wonder, at what point will they just be a little bit corrupted, and then a little bit more corrupted, and then, I don't know, maybe have an Ubisoft-like situation, right? I'd be sad if, say, Nintendo started to do things like that. But anyway, let me know what you think about today's stories, especially Anthem. Do you think there is hope if they do a full Anthem 2.0, they really do rework pretty much everything that's there, and then give it to you for free? Do you actually think that would be enough to, to be a success story? Would you be willing to jump in there again if Anthem 2 was free for you as somebody who had already played Anthem and was well reviewed? I'd be really keen to see just how possible you think a comeback is. And with that, you can check out yesterday's video. There will be another video on the channel tomorrow, so be sure to sub for that. And I will see you next time.